Welcome everyone to GW4W's special heart-to-heart episode focused on veterans. So first and foremost, we want to wish everyone in the US a happy Veterans Day. A special thank you to all our veterans and their families and friends out there for protecting all of us here in America, no matter whether we are Republicans, Democrats, independents, what you have done and continue to do for all of us, we deeply, deeply appreciate. And special just in memory of my grandfather who served in the Navy during World War II, my great uncle who flew 36 missions over Germany, to my husband, to all the people out there that are part of our GW4W network and our female veterans. We wouldn't be in the world that we are in today without you. So we are so honored today to have Janette Dunlap with us, who has been working with the Veterans Association for many, many years and is going to share some real words of wisdom around some of the ways that we can support our veterans, the veterans that work in our organizations, but also help support our employees that care for veterans. When we talk about caregiving in the workplace, we don't always focus on this particular group, and there are special resources that are available to them that we want to make sure that everybody knows about. So I'll give you a little bit of Janette's background. She is an advanced practice nurse practitioner, extensive experience in community-based care, and she's currently a program director for nurse practitioner residency program for the VA North Florida, South Georgia, which is based out of Jacksonville, Florida. And you're also a geriatrician, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so just amazing words of wisdom. And she is the owner and founder of Olive Leaf Alliance, a healthcare consultancy business. Janette, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I think it'd be really helpful if we talked a little bit about some of the profiles around us, veteran caregiving profiles. So what are some of the challenges that you've seen for either veterans in the workplace or some of the unique things that employees that are taking care of veterans have?
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, I want to say a hearty happy Veterans Day for all of our veterans that are on our call, as well as the caregivers. It is a all-for-one approach. I also want to thank all of the veterans for their service. And this is just an honor for me to be here to talk about what I do every day. Mm-hmm. We see so many aspects of the veteran experience. That's what we call it. We call it the veteran experience as a caregiver, the veteran experience as the patient, and the veteran experience as a provider, myself, doctors, nurse practitioners, any of our other disciplines. So you're looking at a just conundrum of different variables that impact the overall well-being of someone that has served in the military. And after coming out of the military, looking at their whole veteran experience of civilization and what does it mean and how does this impact? If I'm used to being in a certain regimented environment, how do I take all of those boundaries off and function in a society that has less and less boundaries as we move through this? So we encounter a lot of those issues. And what I find amazing is how just this veteran experience impacts their family life, their home life, their social life, their work life. It's kind of embedded where you get a holistic picture of what kind of things impact them. And remember now, you're looking at different eras of military experience as well. We have patients, my patients that are 90s, 100, that's the Korean War. And they have lots of stories that they want to tell, and believe it or not, they're actually the most cared for group. We find that our Korean War veterans have taken great care of themselves, and they practice good health. They garden, they're holistic, and they're just in great shape. And then we have our Vietnam era which is one of the areas that we really focus on now, particularly for me, because I'm a geriatrician and my patients are 65 and older. And so that is right in the heart of the Vietnam era. So we see more chronic care issues on top of mental health issues, as well as some substance abuse issues. And this is where you start seeing a lot of your psychosocial impact as far as their adjustment to family. Some of them have lost their families as a result of their experience in the Vietnam War. And they just have never been able to pull it all back together. We see a large amount of homeless in this population, and they kind of have the description of the forgotten veteran, the ones that, you know, no one recognized our service, we weren't appreciated for our service. And so that takes a big consideration. Now we have the OEF, we have the OIF group of younger veterans that are coming back from Afghanistan, coming back from Iraq, coming back from just trying to figure out where do we fit, you know, what is next? I have a family to provide for, and I'm trying to adjust back into this environment. So as a provider, we have to keep all of those things in mind, because primary care starts at 18 and goes up till end of life. And so you have to kind of have all of these things in mind so that you have a good understanding of what we need to do.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, I love the intergenerational call out, because I don't think, again, it's funny how you lump things like veterans and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, there's, you know, nuances around each one of these age groups that, you know, even I wasn't really thinking through. So I have to ask, was it OEI? Is that what you used? I mean, it's just a term I'm not familiar. It might be helpful to just share what that is.
So, you know, so depending on the deployment and depending on how you were sent and what you were sent for, they have different abbreviations, and it's really not that important. It's a technical term. But the biggest thing is, depending on what war and what your deployment involved, there's different errors. And depending on if you went to Iraq, if you went to Afghanistan, there are certain environmental things that we have to be mindful of because of your exposure or because of the different things. And so basically it's just a classification that the VA uses for based on your military experience and where you were deployed.
Interesting. Yeah. And I remember, I mean, obviously Agent Orange was something that was discussed, you know, how many years ago, and I guess it's still impacting, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And even some of I remember reading about the impact from being in the Middle East and some of the oil and the burning oil and the impact on health and well-being from that perspective too. So yeah, very, very interesting when we think about this. I think too, the audience may not realize, I mean, a little fact that we, you know, dug up, that in 2018, 9.1 million military veterans age 18 or older were employed. So that accounts for about 1 in 20 civilian workers, 1 in 20.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think this conversation is so important. So being a gender organization, and we talk about women's empowerment and healthy female leadership, are there differences do you see with female veterans, male veterans, or things that would be helpful for people to understand?
Absolutely. Female veterans, we see, you know, there is a whole women's health unit. There's a whole unit. That's how important it is to us. No one person is the same, of course, but we give specific attention to healthcare issues that impact women on top of being veterans. So one of the things that we encourage all of our veterans to do is make sure that you're connected with the women's health group. The women's health group consists of gynecology, obstetrician, oncology sometimes, but it is a whole specialty within itself. And they also have a specialty mental health unit, because we know that there are some associated mental health. Sexual trauma, unfortunately, is still something that we see a lot in our military with our women, as well as our men at times. So there's a whole nother facet of specialty that deals with women's health. Even though they are the minority, they still have a specific group of health concerns that we want to make sure that we address.
So if an employer has a female veteran working for them, this is a resource that they could potentially let them know about, or, and they may or may not know that as a veteran. So is there a disconnect? I'm just curious, but veterans in general, and I think this is just even from my own knowledge, when they come out of the military and they go into the workforce, I would assume that there is some communication that goes that way, out to veterans about these are the resources that you have available. Is there benefit, or do you see benefit in employers also being able to highlight this for those veterans?
Yes, because we remember, and I don't know how much of the audience knows this, there's different types of healthcare support. We have some that have TRICARE, which is an independent private-based military health insurance, and then some come and they'll get their services on the base. Like we have some that once they are out of the military, they still continue to stay connected through TRICARE, and they prefer to stay with that choice of care. Then there's the Veterans Health Administration, where they come in and they enroll and they receive primary care, long-term care, hospital care, what have you, through the VA health system. So one of the things we find is people don't enroll, and we encourage people enroll into the VHA, because the VHA, which is the Veterans Health Administration, is always a big support. So sometimes what we find is the military TRICARE, they say, oh, I don't need it because I have TRICARE. You fought for it, you served for it, and you deserve it. And so some of our veterans feel like I'm taken away from somebody else if I sign up for it, but you're actually cheating yourself of the service that you are entitled to. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that we make sure we educate our patients on, is don't feel like, oh, I don't need this, I shouldn't get enrolled, I'm going to save this benefit for other people that need it more than I. Everybody needs it, because you never know what services are available. And the VA is one of the government agencies that continues to get funded and continues to get additional funding to support veteran care. So, you need to take advantage of that. You need to understand, what resources can I get when we talk about home health support? If you are a caregiver and your father or your husband is a veteran, they are entitled to respite services, caregiver services. There's a lot of services that a lot of our family members don't even know, and our veterans don't even know. We ask them, hey, do you need this? Do you need that? And I'll give you an example. I saw a patient this week, actually, younger patient, still working, he's 66, and he has a problem with incontinence. And so what he does is, instead of having appropriate supplies when he goes to work, he's kind of ducking and dodging and hiding because he doesn't want people to know that he's got this incontinent issue. And so I recommended, I said, you can get briefs, just the regular incontinent briefs for free, as part of your service here with the VA. And you can't see them. They're like underwear. It's not embarrassing. And you don't have to worry about wetting your pants or having any kind of issues at work. He never even knew he was eligible for them.
Wow.
And that changed his whole outlook. I mean, so can you imagine someone that's working and they're afraid, if I soil my pants, I don't want people to know. I mean, 66 to me, it's not that old to me anymore.
I know somebody's 21, they're going 66 and still working. Yes, people are working into their 80s. So yes.
So that's one of my babies, I call him. So he's working and he's trying to keep himself together. He's got diabetes, he's got high blood pressure, got some little chronic illnesses that he's very conscious of. He does a great job with it. He does our virtual visits, but he's a great example of service, just something as simple as that. He didn't even, and they're expensive. If you've ever had to buy briefs, they're very expensive. So imagine getting a large supply for no more than $10 a month. That's incredible.
Well, and again, there's where that, it crosses over into these other areas in the workplace. Like you said, depending on, I mean, it may be somebody might have shame around this. It's not their fault. It's just a physical thing that they need to take care of. So I almost think that, if businesses, as they're onboarding veterans, I mean, as a first touch point is to make sure, like, are you signed up? Like, ask that question. Are you signed up for the VHA? Like, I would hope that if you're hiring a veteran, that you're asking that question and you're making sure that it's just part of that onboarding process.
Exactly.
But I also see benefits in, to your point, they may not think they need something today, and suddenly 3 or 4 years down the road, something comes up, whether it's physical health, mental health, anything around that, that when we, almost all organizations do open enrollment once a year around medical benefits and all these other things, having a piece specifically for veterans, particularly for those companies that that really go out and bring veterans in, and thank you everybody, all you employers out there doing that. But this is one way that you can really support them. And we're an information overload world.
Yes.
And so, what a great gift to be able to give back to them, to just that reminder of these resources are here for you and we will help you get connected. Is there, I mean, this is a little off topic, but is there a way for employers to help employees get signed up for the VHA? Is there any way that they can support that?
So that's a good question, and you led into what I was going to say. One of the things that I always do when I'm just meeting a patient for the first time, which is probably something that I would encourage employers to do, ask them about the military service. What
Mm.
branch of the military were you in? What did you do? How long were you there? I do it because it tells me if there's maybe some other health issues I need to look at, but it also tells me how their experience was. If they're proud of it, if they say, oh, yes, I retired from the military and this is what I did. I was an airline pilot, or I flew planes, I jumped out of planes, or what have you, versus them saying, I hated it. I hated every day. I couldn't wait to get out. That kind of gives you an idea of how they view this whole veteran experience when we talk about being involved with the veteran experience, and not as an employer that you want to get into their health conditions, but you want to tell them, oh, are you connected, with the VA? Do you have care? Is that where you get it? It's kind of like just a conversation, and then if you because there's a fine line. There's a fine line as an employer of how involved you can even legally get into a person's health. So by just saying general, hey, I know that there's a lot of VA services, are you aware of those? And even having the list of, is there a VA close to them? If they are just being, we call it VA centric, where you are aware of, you don't have to know all of the inside information about the VA, but know, hey, there's one right down the street. Do you know that there's a VA primary care right down the street? Do you know that VA primary care providers can do a virtual call for you?
Mm.
And do you know that, you could do that at your lunchtime, that you can do that when you have a break? The other thing, ma'am, that I would say is being kind of conscious about how their military experience may have impacted them, and just letting them know that. I tell my students all the time, I don't know you have a problem if you don't tell me. And
Mhm.
I don't expect for you to just bleed your heart out to me. But if you have a particular health condition, or if you have a particular struggle, and this is something that's real important to you, you should let me know that. It's not going to impact your job. It's not going to, it just tells me a little bit more about you, Mim. It tells me more about who you are as a person. The whole caring part of that as an employer is really important.
I think that is so spot on, because it, where my mind goes with this is managers, managers that didn't serve in the military. If you have veterans on your team, this to me seems like something that really, it's a conversation that we need to have in management training.
Yep.
And I think it's really important to understand, we honor everybody's service, but not everybody had a good experience.
Exactly.
They may or may not feel comfortable talking about some of these things. And so I think when managers, if they do get veterans on their team, just having a little bit of knowledge around that and a little emotional intelligence, I think would go a long way in terms of them feeling incorporated into the team and avoiding some of the, potential stressors that might come up around this. But
simple as today is Veterans Day, and there's a lot of veterans at work today. And how many employers are saying, hey, I just wanted to thank you for your service. That's simple. It takes 2 minutes, if that. Just tell me, how was your experience? That shows a caring, that I care about them as a person and as a veteran, not just as my employee.
Yeah, I think that is huge, which kind of leads into some of the the tougher challenges sometimes that veterans have. And I would think that depending on the day, depending on what it is, I mean, there's a lot of talk about PTSD and what it is and how that impacts people. But it would be I think helpful for people to understand, how that's evolved, because my understanding is it was something that was ignored, a
Yes.
number of decades ago, but we've gotten much smarter about this.
We are much smarter, but we need to get a little more smarter. I think we still need to acknowledge it, particularly on a job, because stressors trigger PTSD. And research shows that the whole, how do I describe it? The whole concept of their coping strategies, the whole concept of, are you taking your medicine? Don't be ashamed if you need to take medicine. Are you keeping up with your mental health appointments? If you're working, you may not be doing that, because if the medication makes you sleepy, or if the medication causes you to have some adverse side effects, are you letting your provider know that? Does that impact you going to work? Does that impact you driving? Depending on what type of occupation you're in. A lot of psych medications and a lot of treatment medications deal with their whole mental stability, and it causes them to have an altered state at times. However, there is a whole new wave of alternative treatment that we classify as whole health. Whole health I just love it, because it does not deal with medication management. It deals more with behavioral therapy. We deal with meditation, we do yoga, we do Tai Chi, and all of this deals with you getting in touch with your inner self. We've all been mandated to do it. It is a mandated program now within the VA.
Wow.
We had to do mandatory training. Some of us are whole health coaches. A lot of us do our own. Some of them do Tai Chi, some of them do yoga, because I really admire the initiative, because not only was it for the patients, it was for us. And so the concept is, you have to kind of have a mindset of whole health to take care of someone else. And so they started with us, and we use it as stress relievers. We do deep breathing. You see more of us walking. You see more of us with our earphones in and doing our meditation, because it helps us be better providers. And so those types of things are things that employers may want to set up, maybe a quiet space, maybe a break room that deals with this whole concept of serenity. Some people need that. Some people need that during the day. Some people work in an environment where it's tense. And if you are a PTSD survivor, for whatever reason, you need a place to debrief. You need a place to go and get yourself together and say, okay, I can do this. I can make it. Oh, I need to make a phone call, or I need to go and do some deep breathing. Because the one thing that I hear all of the time from my patients is, yeah, if I had time to do all of those things, I would, but I work 5 days a week, sometimes 8, 9 hours a day. I don't have time to do deep breathing. Where would I do deep breathing? And so you hear that Sometimes they're embarrassed. They don't want their employers to know. But if you put up a room, the room is for anybody. You don't have to have PTSD to need a serenity moment, right?
Oh, I think in the world that we're in, I think pretty much all of us could use that room on a, on a regular basis, right?
So that's the whole meaning behind whole health. It is not associated with a certain disease state.
Yeah.
We've learned that years ago that we don't treat PTSD. We treat the person that has PTSD, but you don't treat the disease, you treat the person. I mean, we've been doing that for 20 years at least. So it's kind of this whole same concept with whole health. It's a holistic view. It's not just the medication. It's not just a certain treatment regimen. It's your whole inner being.
Yeah. And it's that investment in your whole. So it's always interesting, and I think, again, what you just said about this highly stressed world and having to build in these holistic things. I mean, the science behind this, there's the reason the VA is doing this is because not because it's just this nice to do, but I know that there's been amazing studies that have come out of, when the VA was piloting some of this. Just if anybody's out there, you can Google some of these things. They've been in documentaries, but the mindfulness piece, we have so much to learn from what the VA has done when we talk about, highly stressed working environments. And so I just, for everybody that's done the research in the VA side of this and put that information out there, I mean, a big thank you, because it benefits way beyond the veterans community. And spot on.
We're finding out that just medication management doesn't work.
Right.
This whole cognitive behavioral therapy piece, that's been around for umpteen years. But it's what works, because it's your whole inner being. It's how you view yourself as a person as to how well or how ill you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
You have people that have diagnosed with cancer or diagnosed with a chronic illness, and they were determined, I'm not going to let it defeat me. And they have such a great outlook on it, and they do so much better.
Yeah.
That people that say, this is it for me. I'm just going to sit here in my house and vegetate. I'm just going to wait for it to come and get me. And when you have that type of attitude, it impacts everything.
Right. Yeah. Power positive thinking. And I mean, positive psychology, just in the past 10 years, there's been, so much about how we can apply this practically in our day-to-day lives. And, when we talk about things like depression and suicide, and we know because of this pandemic,
Sure.
Again, knowing everything that the VA has learned about this, I just think, I would love to hear, and I know that's a hard topic, but I also think that transparent conversation about how we support people, what we need to listen for around these things, and how we can truly support them, and everything the VA, again, this is front and center for you guys. So whatever you can share that you think anybody who may know of someone, or even if you're thinking about that, what are the things, some things that you should be doing?
Another thing that has come to mind, we were talking about PTSD, but also understand there are some chronic illnesses that impact your ability to work, like chronic back pain, or that you have encountered by carrying a backpack on your back in the military for 20 years, where now you have spondylosis, where your back is curved, you have chronic back pain, you may have some chronic illnesses and conditions as a result. You can request reasonable accommodations and get special chairs and special ergonomic equipment to help you do your job. And we want to encourage veterans not to be embarrassed to ask an employer, hey, I've got chronic back pain, I need a lumbar cushion. That's their right as a citizen here under the American Disability Act. And so just having those conversations with our vet, I spend a lot of time doing that. I spend a lot of time asking them, well, a controlled substance is not going to help you at work. You know, hydrocodone 3 times a day is not going to help you get through the day, because you have a job and you have to work and you can't sleep the whole day. So possibly a back brace or a high industrial back brace, or maybe accommodation to your work job or your shift or whatever, to accommodate a chronic physical disability or illness you may have that causes pain.
Right.
Some people suffer from extreme migraines, where the lighting where they work, it is as simple as the paint on the walls could trigger migraines where they can't even see.
Wow.
And so employers should invest in that. They should do some research. You know, there are certain colors that are soothing. There's certain colors, and it may seem like, well, it's no big deal, but it is. There's research that shows bright yellow can trigger a migraine. And so if the break room,
you may think it's a bright cheery color, but that may not be what you want to, put in. It's really interesting how that bleeds into like the healthy built environment. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, because whether we're talking about the well building standard or Fitwell or some of these other, it's this integration. I think the other thing too that comes up for me is that many organizations, as you said, have ergonomics programs. But again, the ergonomist going in there should be thinking through that veterans lens as well. And I think this whole backpack, that is such a great illustration. Or other disabilities, whether they are visible or invisible, and how that impacts, just
another one is hearing impaired. You have a lot of veterans that are hearing impaired because of where they served and what they did. If they worked on a ship, or if they worked on a armory where there's guns and a lot of loud noises, if they were pilots, there's certain occupations and positions in the military that they automatically are going to have hearing loss. And they may think, and a lot, the VA does a great job with accommodations like that. The hearing aids are so small, you can't even see them. But a lot of veterans are thinking they're these big old fashioned things that fit over the ear. They're so neat now and they're so cool. You don't even see them. There's implants. Some people have cochlear damage, where it is an internal damage in their cochlear system. That's the inner ear component, where they get implants and it's actually implanted right in that area, and it improves your hearing. Same with vision. A lot of it is just the communication, and it's the veteran knowing we have all of these services here. You don't have to pay $10,000 for a hearing aid when you may have hearing problems as a result of your military service. That's why we want to take care of you. You may come to us for nothing but a hearing aid, and that's okay. We're here for that. You can still go to your other doctor, but come and get the $5,000 hearing aid from us. Don't pay $5,000 when you don't have to.
Well, and it goes back again. I always like the bigger context of this. I've been involved in programs where they had corporate hearing testing, like they brought somebody in and non-veterans, but kids that like went out and went to a million rock concerts and never protected their ears. Didn't know any better. I get it, but it's interesting. But I mean, even there, like I've never seen a program where they've said, where they've discussed, if you are a veteran and you have an issue, here's the next step for you.
Right.
Versus going to somewhere else. So again, I think this is another opportunity for employers to care for their veterans, and in a very specific way. I will share that my husband's military service, that for part of it he was in tanks. He actually does have partial hearing loss.
Yes.
In his ears. So I'm always very careful about when we have conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah. So even that, right? Those are just simple things, just to be able to say, hey, look, I don't hear so well out of this ear. We have a conversation. If I say something or ask you to repeat something, it's not because I'm not listening. It's just I need to hear it in a different way.
Exactly.
So, just simple ways that, we can help support them. So I think, we talked a lot about the veterans that are working for you. How about the employees that have veterans at home?
So one of the challenges that I see are they don't know exactly what supportive services are available.
Mhm.
Every VA has a huge network of caregiver support that normally starts with the social worker, where you would actually meet with the social worker. Two major things: the social worker and the Veteran Service Office. The Veteran Service Office talks about compensation. They deal with any supportive care you may need, travel, assistance. They help you maneuver through the system. That's a great place for anybody that does not know where to start with the VA. So when you're asking about who should employers send people to, the Veteran Service Office has everything. They can tell you, okay, what service do you need? And go here, 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 here. Once you are established within the VA, the social worker on any team in any VA can get you connected with services you need. A lot of times what I find is veterans or caregivers of veterans are still trying to work, like myself, and they have a veteran that's at home with them, or they have a veteran that needs to get to the doctor, needs to get here, there, and they have to work. So they're trying to figure out, how can I get these services taken care of? We have virtual is just blowing up for us. I mean, everything we do now is through virtual care. There is a whole connected care entity within the VA now that does nothing but focus on different platforms for us to be able to talk to caregivers and veterans about what's going on with them at any given time, via phone, iPad, iPhone, your regular cell phone, whatever. We even issue iPads now to veterans so that we can do services. And so one thing, and it's awesome, one thing that I do, I have a virtual clinic. And so this was specifically set up for caregivers. There were more caregivers that were interested in it than the veteran. I'll give you an example. So I have an 80-year-old gentleman. He's got some cognitive impairment. He lives with his family, but his family goes to work. So we have home health aide going in about 4 times a week. They help him with his bath and they get him started for the day. The family supplements that with another person that comes in and throughout the day will come pick him up, take him, go different places, and keeps him company. He also has an adult daycare voucher from us where he goes to adult daycare. So I think the family ended up being able to use the money that they normally would use for the private duty home health aide person to kind of provide an extra cushion for them. When it comes time for the patient's visit with me, we do a virtual call. The son will step out. He's at work. He'll say, okay, my lunch is at 12. I'm going to be on at 5 minutes after 12 or whatever. We have the patient at the house with the home health aide. There's an iPad there. We're all on the call together. We've done calls where we have the social worker, the pharmacist, myself, a nutrition, the patient, the caregiver, and the son all at the same time. It's awesome.
Fantastic.
Because he can finish what he's doing and then he can go back to work. So that's an awesome thing. I'm in the way here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah.
But
that's
this
my
is
background that just walked past. So
that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. We are all human. You talked about that whole human, right? This is the world we're in. We're, pets, kids, parents, spouses, So it is the humanness of what it is. But I really love that some of this virtual care has now come front and center, because I know personally I've been exposed to this like years ago, and we didn't really there's a lot of questioning about the efficacy of what it is. And, it's wonderful to see the efficacy of, and whether it's physical health or mental health, because mental health providers are doing the same thing. So, yeah, so there is just this, this new opportunity. And I would encourage employers, again, you're seeing what the Veterans Association is doing here. Doesn't just have to be the Veterans Association. I think pushing our healthcare providers and all these other folks into a different place is going to, it's I hate to say this, but it's it's really a way to save us time. And I think some very specific examples that if you are taking care of an elderly person in your family and it's 2:00 in the morning and you're not sure if you should go to an emergency room or urgent care, having access to that virtual person, the stress that can take off of an employer, the person you're caring for, and getting really, really solid advice, in my mind is exactly what we need to be doing. And so I love that the Veterans Association is not just doing this, but giving the actual physical thing that they need to go out there.
So I'm trying to cut out the background noise. I apologize for that.
No worries.
So part of the, I think, thing that works for us is the caregivers need to be very honest with the provider. And they need to be very honest with what particular services they feel they need. Sometimes it takes me a minute to kind of nibble away at that. I have some caregivers that come in, and I do encourage caregivers to apply for family leave. An intermittent FMLA is great because it allows you to take time off to take your loved one to the visits if you need to. I always tell caregivers, please don't feel embarrassed about asking me for an FMLA. I actually ask them, do you need one?
Yeah.
Because the intermittent FMLA is really nice because it's hour and it's not like you're not asking for an indefinite period of time. You're asking for an hour here or an hour there so that you can take your father or your husband to their doctor or to another appointment. And so that's nice.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it gets into, salaried versus hourly paid employees. And I'd ask employers to think about it through that lens. It's a different ask. If somebody's salaried and they're taking an hour here, an hour there, it's viewed very differently than if you were an hourly wage employee. And it has a very different impact to your financial bottom line. So wherever employers can get a little bit more creative around, I have to be a caregiver, but do I also have to take a financial hit around this? Or can I make up the time somewhere else? Is huge. I know there are organizations out there that have increased some of their PTO specifically around this. And I know that there's always the pushback about, well, this costs us money. And, but ultimately, if it means a caregiver leaving their job because they can't really balance these things out, the cost to you as an employer is huge, much more than that hour or two that, that they're asking for. So very important. And I would say particularly around veterans after all that they've sacrificed to think about it through that lens. It is.
I kind of spend a lot of time talking to other providers because you have to be compassionate and empathetic on that. And it's probably more meaningful to me because I'm a caregiver for two, and one is not even here in this state. And so I have to have the flexibility that if I need to step out, if I need to do something, I can do that. So for me, I tell the providers, have a little compassion and ask them, what do you need? It's not, well, it's too bad. That's your mother or that's your father. You just figure it out. Well, sometimes you can't figure it out if you don't have any resources. You have to be at work. you
Right.
know, and I try to accommodate that. You know, I'll ask them, what time do you need the appointment? Don't worry about what I have available. I will fit you in, or I will get you. I do not expect for you to take off your job. And it's for me to try to accommodate you.
Mm.
And so there's a whole onus on us when you're, I call it shopping around for the right provider.
Yeah.
Interview them and tell them, listen, this is my situation. I work. I need to be able to get a hold of you or set up something virtually. I cannot quit my job. I cannot come over here every day at 10 o'clock because that's the only opening you have. There's sometimes I'm going to need you to call me back. Can you email me? Or those kind of things are important.
Yeah.
And you need to ask that when you are trying to decide what type of provider do you want. That's important too. You know, this is a two-way relationship,
Right.
you know,
Well,
and go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, and I think along those lines too, anywhere that employers can help with vetted services. Here are some things that we know can help you as a caregiver, whether you're a vet, caring for a vet, or just, and I know one of the pieces that we always talk about, and I know Fern Pessin wasn't, able to be on with us today, but this idea of being prepared, that
Yes.
if you
Yeah.
know that the person that you're caring for is going to need a greater level of service down the road, 6 months, a year out, 2 years out, the more prepared you can be as a caregiver, with the practical stuff, the legal side, all the, where are you storing that information? How quickly can you get to it? If you are at a doctor's office, is there a way? And there are, this is where I think in the world that we're in, there are, I know, another app, right? But truthfully,
Yeah.
there are really good resources out there. And I think when employers can come in and say, look, here, we vetted this, we know it's good, we'll help you get this set up, we know that you're going in here. What an investment in your employee. And honestly, you will save them time and stress. This impacts how they're connected at work. There are just a whole lot of pluses. And I think with an aging workforce and with COVID,
Yeah.
and with more and more people caring for people in different states, when you move around as an executive, and it, again, this hits employees at all levels. This is not,
Absolutely.
yeah, all socioeconomic levels. So I would say as we go into 2021, particularly because what we have seen just happen this year, having more resources around caregiving is
Yes.
going to be key. And including, and I know we had it on the list, end of life care.
Exactly. And
Tough.
understand this. One of the great things about the VA, every avenue, every facet of the VA has connected care, telehealth care embedded into the service. So whatever you need, it's literally a Zoom call away. You do not have to leave your work. You do not have to go into the clinic. And we have been doing this, we're going on probably about 4 years now.
Wow.
The pandemic kind of put it front and center that, okay, now you really have to use it, guys. We have it, we've had it here. They keep coming up with different modalities. But there is no reason why anyone that is connected within the VA cannot have a virtual visit for anything, PT, OT, social work, the whole gamut of the VA has been converted to a virtual world. And so that's awesome for caregivers, for veterans, for anybody.
Yeah, and I just wanted to call out just some of these benefits that some of the people or employers or managers may not be aware of. We know that you guys provide, the VA provides end of life care, insurance, banking support, loans, respite programs. We touched on the hearing exams and hearing aids, which we know are just astronomically expensive, physicals and flu shots, discounted prescriptions, which is often such a barrier for so many people. And you touched on like adult diapers and things like wheelchairs and compression socks, all of these things. Nobody that's a veteran that's in a working situation should ever feel like they don't have that kind of support.
Exactly.
And yeah, and again, sometimes we want to put our brave face on, and we want to, just, and so again, so many have sacrificed and been such leaders, but to be the best leader you can be, we all need support. We all need to have that, the team around us. And as you said, you have earned this.
Mm-hmm.
It is there, and it's our thank you as a nation back
Exactly.
to you and to your, and if it's not, or to the parent or older adult that you're caring for, in your life. And it's all of this is so amazing. I know I have learned so much today. And I thank you for everything that you do, your voice to just, help so many people have, quality of life and to honor who they are. It's amazing. If any last words of wisdom you would like to share with our audience?
Well, I don't think so. I'm hoping this is one of many. I love the dialogue. I think that just telling people things that they don't know is so valuable. My mother always says a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So that's my last thought.
I love that.
Say something. You have to tell people what you need on both ends. This open communication. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. It's an honor to be a veteran. It's an honor for me to serve veterans. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And it is really something to be honored and to be proud of.
Well, we thank you for your voice and being a part of this special heart-to-heart conversation. We want to thank everyone who joined us. And again, to all our veterans, thank you.
Happy
Thank you. And we will see you on our next Heart to Heart. Bye-bye.